Welcome to the 239th episode of the Jami Dulaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jami Dulaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thanks for listening. I hope your new year is going fabulously. I'm in my marathon training. I'm getting ready to head out with Michael Hubbard to visit Addie Meinerich and Nathan Meinerich in Houston, and we're going to be doing the Houston Half next weekend, so that should be a fun time. Addie Meinerich, who is my daughter and registered dietitian, is expecting, her and Nathan are expecting their first child in May, and she's going to be running the Houston Half about 22 weeks or so along. So she's been a runner and before being pregnant, and she's continued right up through her pregnancy, and we'll probably talk about that when we're out there and record a little bit for the next podcast. But she's doing well, keeping up her running. For anybody out there that's trying to run while pregnant, she's found what's called a belly belt, so support for the baby, and that's really helping her running out. She's also continues to weight train and do all her other activities, and she's doing great. Mommy and baby are growing appropriately, and of course she's completely plant-based, sugar, oil, salt-free, so getting lots of nutrients in. So can't wait to visit her and do our half marathon next weekend, and then the next race that is coming up for us is the Austin Marathon in February, and that will be where we'll try to run another fast time. We'll see how it is. It's a pretty hilly race, but so far so good. Things are on track. I am swimming about one time per week. Just started back into that for the new year. I am not a cold water fan. And I know I live in Florida and it's not that cold, but I am a Floridian now after being down here for many years. And it is, I don't mind running in shorts at 45, but something about getting into, 84-degree water when it's 50 or 60 outside, it takes a little doing for me. But anyway, I swam this morning, felt good after. I always felt great afterwards. If you could just, feel as good before as you do afterward, it'd be a lot easier to get some of these exercise programs in. But nevertheless, I knew that I needed to get my swim in because we're going to do a swim run event next fall. So I want to keep my swimming good and, perhaps get it better. And it's a great way to cross train and give myself a little bit of a break before I do my long runs on the weekend. So that's how that's all going. Mango trees are in full bloom here in Florida. It's nice to watch. And tomatoes are starting to bloom. We have tomatoes on the vine, peppers on the vine, eggplant on the vine. Microgreens are going good. So it's a great time to be a gardener in Florida because finally we got the heat and the humidity down a little bit. So it's great growing season. Speaking of marathon running, there was a recent study published by Patrice Wendland in the Journal of American College of Cardiology this January that looked at aortic stiffness and marathon running. So she and her colleagues looked at people training for their first marathon and looked at age-related aortic stiffness. And we know that the aorta is a main blood vessel running through the body, and they looked at the ascending where the aorta comes off the heart, and then the proximal part where the carotid arteries come off, and then the descending part down near the diaphragm. And they measured using a cardiac MRI the change in stiffness after training for a marathon. So they took 138 first-time marathons, and they were training for the London Marathon. And previously they had not been running for more than 2 hours a week at baseline. The average age of the people in the study was 37 years of age, but it ranged from 21 to 69. 49% were men, and that is very consistent. There is actually more women that run marathons than men at this stage in the United States, but this actually was an English study. They did 3 runs per week, and they put them on a 17-week training period. And they were averaging the marathon times for the men was an average of 4.5 hours. Women was 5.4 hours. And they had really low mileage, 6 to 13 miles per week, which is not a very vigorous marathon training program. And they assessed their aortas before the marathon and then 16 days after and compared the stiffness. And the end result was basically that the arterial age, or the stiffness, decreased 1.5 years in the ascending aorta and 3.9 in the proximal descending and 4 years in the diaphragmatic portion. It was also noted to be the most improved in older male runners who had a higher blood pressure at baseline. So, we can extrapolate from this small study, if you want, that training for a marathon is going to improve arterial stiffness. Arterial stiffness is correlated with blood pressure. So, again, it's another documentation that running and vigorous exercise improves cardiac function without regard of diet or nutrition. So, anybody that gets out there and exercise is going to benefit from this stuff. Obviously, the safety of marathon training is much safer in on plant-based nutrition. But again, anybody at any age is going to get some benefit from marathon training. So I thought that was a very good thing to look at. We posted that in our online membership website, and had several people interested in training for a marathon. So hopefully in our membership practice, we'll get some people that want to take on training for a marathon over the next 6 months to a year and see how it goes. You can only get better. We know that from other studies that, there's no upper limits of fitness. So the more you do, the better you get, the better it will be, and the younger your arteries will stay. And there's certainly nothing wrong with having young arteries, that's for sure. Just think what we'll be able to do on plant-based nutrition, because we know eating 4 to 5 cups of greens a day is going to cause or be associated with dilatation or enlargement of the vasculature, particularly all those little collateral vessels. So it makes it easier for the heart to pump, and the arteries are going to dilate even more. And, much more benefit will be seen if you combine, nutrition and exercise together. So we might be setting some records here in the membership practice. Just wait and see. This is in a big contrast to one of the members came in and had been going to a chiropractor because he had some sciatica from a CrossFit injury. And he was told that maybe he should try the carnivore diet. That would possibly help him because it had a high protein, and that would really help him. So, let's break down the carnivore diet. This is something that people have just come up with. It's, I'll at least give the ketogenic people the benefit of the doubt that there was some benefit in children with seizures on the high-fat diet, and certainly fasting and ketone, generating ketone bodies is beneficial from a fasting. So you could imply that, a ketogenic diet, when, more ketones are generated, there could be some benefits. Obviously, there's a lot of harms with the ketogenic diet and a high-fat diet, but at least they have, some little bit of science that they're trying to pull from, although it, is greatly flawed. But a carnivore diet, this is just something that, no one eats. I mean, it's there's no basis for it. I've heard the argument that there's never been a vegan society. Well, I don't believe there's ever been a carnivore society. We as humans aren't quick enough, fast enough to ever have just lived on meat. There has to been, mainly vegetables, and tubers and fruit in the background. So the carnivore diet is completely unfounded. It's from, the big muscle guys that thinking, eating this high protein diet is going to help them. But it's not just a high-protein diet. Again, it's how things are packaged. So if you're eating an all-meat diet, which is basically a carnivore diet, then you're getting the protein along with fat and cholesterol and everything that the animal was exposed to as far as toxins. And You can even say that it was a grass-fed cow, but that grass-fed cow was standing out in a field, accumulating toxins and eating grass that was polluted with the air that it breathes, and all those toxins are accumulating in that animal's fat. And, of course, all the heavy metals that you get from that animal eating the dirt and the iron and all those other things. So certainly it's, you have those toxins along with the intake of the protein and the fat. There's no fiber in flesh. There's not going to be much in the way of antioxidants. Whatever the animal was able to accumulate in its blood from eating plants, that's the only antioxidants that an animal would have. And, it's typically not served by itself, but it's coated in butter and salt. So, it's about the highest toxic diet that you can probably come up with. It's the package of the protein is bad. We know that protein is tremendously hard on the kidneys. It's very hard to filter. It's very acid forming. It's very calcium leaching. So, bad for the kidneys, bad for the heart with heavy metals, fat, cholesterol, vasoconstriction, salt associated with it. So it's just an all-around diet. So for someone to suggest that to a patient with coronary artery disease, it's really, really scary. So, there's no reason to ever even consider a carnivore diet or think that it may help. And if somebody suggests it to you, run the other direction. On the other hand, you're never too old to educate people. I had one of my 99-year-old members in the hospital recently, and it's kind of a sad story that I don't think he would probably mind me sharing. He has been vegan most of his adult life. Had been vegan, I should say. His wife was one of the first registered dietitians in the community that I live in, and she was vegan. They were vegan because of because of the animals, firstly, and secondly for their health. His wife lived to be in her 90s, and she was vegan the whole time. Two of his children are vegan, and 3 of them are not. One was. But the sad part about it, there were circumstances in the home that led to him going to an assisted living facility where they no longer fed him a vegan diet. And he started to decline. So he was sharp as a tack, as people would say. Extreme mental clarity, extreme amount of common sense, was walking around without much assistance. And when his diet changed, he had a rapid decline. He started to get swelling of his legs because of the high salt in his diet. He started to get more infections. He started to have some bony deterioration. And he was brought to the hospital because of cardiac disease. And he had a stent placed probably over 20 years ago. And so he had been doing, quite well until this terrible dietary change. But when he came to the hospital on Dr. Dulaney's service, if you're in the hospital, you get a plant-based diet. And so even though it's very difficult to order sometimes in the hospital, I make sure that all my patients get plant-based diet, and we have a plant-based menu in the one hospital in town where I have people go. So he got his plant-based, and we ordered his plant-based diet. And of course, the first time it comes, sometimes they mess it up. It still amazes me that the dietary staff is very anti-plant-based diet. The servers, have no idea, the people working in the dietary department, what a vegan or a plant-based diet is. They think that cottage cheese is okay, and creamers are okay, and eggs are okay. So it's a constant education to make sure that the people actually get the vegan tray for the patient. But he had a nurse that was new, and we again, it was a couple times to try to make sure that the vegan tray was okay. And I came in, and he had actually educated his nurse on the benefits of a plant-based diet, and was talking to her, and she began to ask questions, and I talked to her about the podcast and the health and my patients. But it's kind of funny. The first thing that happens is it's like, oh, it's Dr. Dulaney. Her patients have that vegan diet, poor them. Sometimes they'll even send up a bag of sun chips or something like that because they think that the poor person is being neglected because they're on my service getting a vegan diet. But nevertheless, she asked questions, and he was answering them, and she was educated. So, I gave her some ideas of things to listen to and books to read, and who knows? But, again, I think it's quite remarkable that, a 99-year-old is, again, educating the nursing staff at a local hospital. And he's in the local hospital because his caregivers at his new facility don't know anything about nutrition. And, his diet declined, and he got ill, only to come in to have to educate the staff. And, the nurse that was taking care of him, she said, well, I wish we could get some of the food that he's getting on his trays, for us to eat. Again, it's not available for the staff, which is quite sad. So I guess maybe this year I need to I thought we got the menu in place, and I thought it would catch on and move a little quicker. And I guess I kind of just let it slip because I haven't had very many hospitalizations, because patients don't have to go to the hospital if they're part of my practice for the most part, because they're eating a plant-based diet. But I'm going to have to go back to the hospital and re-educate the staff and see if we can't take it to the next level and get vegan options for the nursing staff. While I was there visiting him, one of the other nurses that I had interacted with formerly came up to me, and he was actually writing his master's paper on the benefits of a vegan diet. He was having trouble following it himself, but he did understand, the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. It comes back to his problems where his family, his wife didn't want to, his elderly parents who lived with him didn't want to eat plant-based, his kids didn't want to eat plant-based. And people just don't, they give in, and they don't make the effort to try to help their families or educate their families, on the benefits of eating a plant-based diet. I think that, if you're new to this game, you need to sit down and watch, movies like The Game Changers and Cowspiracy and What the Health and Forks Over Knives. I think you need to see that. I think you need to bring up some videos of successful athletes that are going plant-based. I think, in older kids, it's reasonable to bring up the factory farm and environmental issues to help educate the family. But again, it comes down to, if it's your dollars that is buying the food, and it's your dollars that's paying for health care, then why wouldn't you want to spend your dollars wisely and not buy junk food and keep your family the healthiest as they possibly can? When kids, go to school, if they're, exposed, you can't control people 100% of the time. But if you educate them at home, it's just like everything else. When you bring your children up with manners and a sense of values, then when they leave the house, they're still going to use that. The same way with the nutrition. Might they have some slips? Yes, possibly. But at least you have the ability to educate them at home. And I think that, we need to do a better job of that with the families. It's sad in this patient's view that, again, he had a disabled daughter that, again, she was no longer getting the plant-based food and gained a bunch of weight. And his other son and his other two sons weren't plant-based. So there's a marked difference in the health of the children that he has that are plant-based versus non-plant-based. So it's readily apparent in these people. I did another book signing this week. I was back at our local bookstore in Punta Gorda called the Copperfish Bookstore. It's really nice to have a small hometown bookstore that you can go in and browse, as opposed to some of the big bookstores that you get lost in. So they're very hospitable. We had some hors d'oeuvres, and I gave a little talk about the book and, how it came to be, and did a book signing. We had about 58 people show up, and most of them, I would say maybe 10 to 20% were plant-based or beginning to become plant-based, but all the people there were interested in becoming plant-based. There was a family with a young son that is going to actually try to qualify for the Olympic trials in the marathon, and he was interested in being plant-based for athletic performance. I thought it was fabulous. A lot of people with heart disease. There were a couple nurses there that are trying to make the transition. A lot of misunderstanding about what a plant-based diet is. So it was a good chance to educate the community. A lot of people were interested. My practice, if you're new to listening, it's a wellness practice. It's a membership practice. It's based on plant-based nutrition. We have 3 plant-based nutrition courses a week for our members, as well as the opportunity to do yoga and a balanced training for our older individuals. But, we spend a lot of time educating people on plant-based nutrition. I have a full-time registered dietitian that's able to speak with people as much as they need and help them menu plan and troubleshoot. That's not available. I don't know where it's available, to tell you the truth, because she's, insurance won't pay for just, a regular individual that wants to meet with a registered dietitian. And, unless you have diabetes or kidney disease, you can't get that paid for through your insurance. And our members have the access, 7 days a week, basically, to be able to communicate with a registered dietitian. And, it's explaining that way of practice to the people at that came to the Copperfish was, really exciting, because we could share our success stories with them. And, it's a different approach to medicine, because we're really focused on keeping people well, getting them off of medications. And so we had a lot of interesting questions, and, we had some interest, but it's really funny. It's so hard for people to make that leap and that commitment. I think you first have the idea that, you need a change, or things aren't going well, and, you want to make that change, but maybe your family, is not at the same point. Maybe it's too hard. Maybe you're not the cook. Maybe you're just not sure of the data. I remember, way back when I started reading about plant-based nutrition, I was vegan, and then it became more plant-based nutrition. I wondered, it's like, wonder if these guys are, wonder if it's true. Wonder if Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. McDougall are charlatans, and they're just, on this quest for, doing this crazy fad diet. But, the more you read about it, obviously you see the studies, and you see the reversal disease, and, at that point that it really works. And then when you start to look at the science for some of these other crazy fad diets, you realize that, there's no science behind it. And, as I've been doing this, we're having our own success stories. So it's really fun to be able to share our success stories in our practice with other people, when we go to places such as the Copperfish. So it's a good time. I get excited. I'm hoping people are going to make the leap to plant-based nutrition a little quicker, but I think you have to hear it a couple times. Again, unfortunately, the majority of people have to have something wrong with them before they're going to make a change, instead of just, starting it from this, the beginning. I think that's where, some of the environmental aspect of things come in, when people start looking at factory farming and realize this is just not how we should be feeding ourselves, and the poisons that we're subjecting ourselves and the chemicals that we're subjecting ourselves to. I think, that's kind of the way to start. We start looking about where your food is coming from. When you're eating fast food or you're going to a restaurant, you have no idea where that food comes from. Have no idea who touched it, how it's being prepared, what was done to it. We know that things that are breaded, they're breaded in the factory. There's a tremendous amount of high fructose corn syrup in them, like we talked about last week, as much as, a bunch of different additives. So it's just a matter of a lot of people hearing it more than once, hearing it different ways, getting that little spark. And so that's what we're trying to do when I go out and do the talks in the community and the book signings. It's fun. My mom came with me. My mom did most of the soups in the book, and she has a great knack for putting spices together and presenting things. And so the picture, every recipe in the book has a picture. Addie was a photographer as well as a registered dietitian, doing all the dietary aspects of the book. She's also the baker of the family, so she was in charge of most of the sweets. And then we all pitched into the entrees. So it was a fun book to do, and it's a fun thing to go out and talk to people about how the book came about. I thought it would be a lot easier than it actually was. We're looking forward to doing another book because we have more recipes have come along, and so it was a lot of fun seeing people and interacting with people and taking their questions. I had someone ask me about, wasn't much of a cook, was living by herself, and she had done Weight Watchers, and that didn't work. And then she tried things like, the Blue Apron and some of the other, whatever the services are that deliver the meals in a box that have all the ingredients, and you just have to cook it. And so I kind of pulled up one to see what the box was like, and I pulled up a Blue Apron entree, and I don't think they'd mind me talking about it. It's a pesto chicken. I did the vegetarian one. It was a pesto chickpea pasta with goat cheese and almonds, and it had 620 calories per serving, 33 grams of fat, 7 grams of saturated fat, 35 milligrams of cholesterol, 1,190 milligrams of sodium. Had 11 grams of fiber and 32 grams of protein. If you looked at the ingredients, there was canola oil. There was pea protein added to it. It was chickpea pasta, so it was made with chickpeas, pea protein, tapioca, and xanthan gum. There was a basil pesto that went along with it. Of course, it had oil and Parmesan cheese and milk. Goat cheese, there was Romano cheese, there was powdered cellulose, almond milk, and an ingredient called natamycin as a preservative. And, and that was, there's 2 servings per the box. And I don't know, I've never ordered Blue Apron. I know that I tend to eat more than 1 serving, so, you can get in a lot of trouble. It is a very high fatty entree and a heavy entree, so maybe I couldn't eat more than 1 serving, but still, if you did, you can get into a tremendous amount of salt here for dinner. But this natamycin stuff is an antifungal. It is billed as a natural preservative. Apparently, Whole Foods has banned foods with natamycin in it. We think antifungal, not antibacterial. And so people think, well, it's not going to cause antibiotic resistance, like when they put antibiotics in, animal food and things like that. But I just wonder with this new, antifungal, are we going to, again, I would assume that we're going to upset the microbiome with some of these preservatives. It markedly extends the shelf life of these things. And are we going to select for different fungi that end up causing, more overgrowth and bacteria problems? And of course, nobody really talks about natamycin. We know people have allergic reactions to antibiotics and some antifungals. So, how with this multitude of ingredients in this entree, along with natamycin, one might wonder, just what you could get started with all this combinations, and that's just 1 meal for the day. So we're hoping that we can help this person learn to cook simply. I think when you become plant-based, the first thing to do is to cook really simple. Learn to cut up fruit for breakfast, have a little oatmeal, learn to have a big green salad with cucumbers and peppers, onions and carrots and celery, some beans that look like beans, not made into something else. Perhaps a whole grain like barley. This week in nutrition class, our level 1, we made tabbouleh, and we made it with a pearl barley, which is great. So barley, simple. Barley, cucumber, tomato, parsley, lemon juice, black pepper. That's it. Great, great lunch. Have a piece of fruit and you're good to go. Dinner with a sweet potato and some beans and another vegetable, greens, Swiss chard, cabbage, just steamed cabbage. Cut a head of cabbage in half, separate it out, wash it, put it in a skillet with a little garlic, a little bit of water, a little bit of black pepper. Let it sizzle there in your skillet, and you have a great, great side dish. So keep it really simple. You don't have to open up a cookbook, even though I'd like you to open up ours on occasion. And you can get it, Plant-Based Wellness Cooking, the doctor, the dietitian, and the diva. You can get it at Amazon. We certainly like you to get that one. But a lot of nights, just really, really keep it simple, especially when you're starting out. I think that's the best way to go. And, these boxes, I'm sure, are expensive. I didn't look at the price of them, but, most of what you're paying for is the processed food part of things. And it's not billed as being processed. It's billed as being natural because it comes in a box and you're actually cooking it. But the reality of it, it's a mess. We're going to be traveling to Houston and then to Austin and then to Utah and North Carolina over the next couple of months. And we're going to be on an airplane, and we're going to be running lots of miles, and maybe our immune system is going to be a little bit compromised from being a little bit tired. And so people often, say, every time I get on an airplane, I get sick. So I want you to think, do you have your mouth open or you have your mouth closed? People that have their mouth open are not going to filter the bugs that are in the air as much as you're going to filter it if you breathe through your nose. Our nose has little filaments and fibers and little hairs inside, and we actually make our own, our immune system helps us to fight off these bacterial agents. Our own microbiome will fight off these outside agents if you're breathing through your nose. But if your mouth is open and you're taking in, you're going to have a much greater risk of getting sick. So practice your breathing. The other thing is, practicing your diaphragmatic breathing, breathing from your belly, breathing that your ribs open up and your back, and you're also going to be delivering more oxygen to your tissues, improving your metabolism. But there was also a study looking at breath holding and arterial dilatation in the brain. So breath holding exercises actually causes your the blood flow in the brain arteries to increase. And they looked at the middle cerebral artery and the resting versus holding a breath, and there was actually an improved blood flow by doing breath holding and breathing exercises. So it not only is the way you breathe important to fight off infections, important to deliver oxygen to your tissues so that you're more efficiently metabolizing fat versus burning off your glucose stores when you don't need to be. We're always going to use glucose for our brain, but this will allow you to actually get more blood flow to your brain. So I thought that was a pretty cool study. We talked a couple of weeks ago about, seeing young people and children becoming more and more overweight. And there was another study that looked at the involvement of genes versus nutrition in predicting body mass index over time. So, if you're, is it just your bad genes that are going to cause you to be overweight as an adult, or is it your nutrition? And they looked at about 3,000 people, and really it was the nutrition that predicted whether people would be overweight as they became older versus their genetics didn't really have much to do with it. So your gene and your plate has much more to do today with how you will be 20 years from now. And, we certainly saw that at the race. When people are eating fast foods as children, and high-calorie dense foods, sugary foods, soft foods, low in fiber, high in cholesterol, high in fat. Nobody can sustain that. Nobody can outrun that. Nobody can out-exercise that over time. You may have a slower gain in metabolic excess. You may put on fat slower if you're really, really athletic and moving a lot, but over time, it's going to catch up with you. And certainly those toxins that you're putting away in the cells are going to catch up with you at some point. So it's not your genes, it's very little to do with your genes. And I can tell you that from my family. I have, if it were looking at genes, I should be pretty overweight and probably dead by now. So, I think that we have it's certainly our environment and our nutrition plays a huge role in what happens to us till later in life. I heard a little talk, if you haven't seen, there's a movie, a documentary called The Plastic Ocean. That talks about, the plastic accumulation in our oceans. There's really no place where even the breakdown, if the plastic bottles into the nanospheres, these nanoparticles that are not visible to the eye are everywhere. And, there's been studies done where they collect this on the water, just about every place. And you can inhale this stuff, and we're just learning the side effects, the diseases that inhaling these nanoparticles. They've measured, they measured in the Pyrenees mountains in France, how much of this stuff comes down, and they could catch it in the rain. So it's everywhere. It doesn't have to be close to where the plastic is or the garbage dumps are. It's in the water, these little nanoparticles. It's in the rain, it's in the soil, it's in the environment. And it's becoming more and more of a problem. And, we all talk about recycling, but we're way behind, and a lot of the plastics don't ever make it into, the recycling compartment. They get put into landfills that, take hundreds of years to go away, or they're burned, and those toxic fumes and those nanoparticles get into the air. But if you do recycle, we actually have to be conscious about what goes in there. A lot of the waste management companies are becoming better at recycling, things like juice boxes and milk cartons and different plastics. But, the food waste and, this single-use plastics is a huge, huge problem. And, it's everywhere when you start to look at it. And, I was just kind of reviewing, what can you do? Certainly if you can use glass, as far as, storage containers for your food, that's a great thing. Aluminum cans have the highest value. They can be recycled. Glass and metals can be recycled. Some of the plastics can only be recycled, a couple of times, even if they're recycled. So we really have to decrease our plastic consumption, and especially the single-use plastic, because it's almost it almost all goes into the creation of these nanoparticles. The energy saved with recycling aluminum is like 95%. Still in 60 to 74% of the energy, the energy that can be saved, that if you had to redo this stuff from scratch. Plastic and glass about 30%. There was a study that looked at one glass bottle recycles really light a 100-watt light bulb for 4 hours. So it's a good thing for us to try to, in 2020, let's look to recycling more and accumulating, especially though this plastic waste. So I saw this article in the National Geographic. A girl went on a vacation, and she was trying to, eliminate the use of plastic and the single-use plastic. And you think about it, well, you're going on vacation, the first thing that happens, the snacks and the water bottles, in the airport. Again, you can take your own water bottle, reusable water bottle. Now a lot of the airports have the filtered water that you can get once you get there, instead of buying plastic water bottles. Think about the snacks. All the snack food comes in single-use plastic containers. The fruit and everything. Just think of all the plastic there that goes along there. So, she brought her own snacks in silicone. You can do silicone baggies, and little reusable totes. So she bought a reusable tote bag to get food in. When you get to a hotel, think about the little shampoos, so you can, I didn't really realize this is a possibility, but you can do shampoo bars, as well as, the bar soap, bar shampoo is actually better because you're eliminating the plastic on the outside. She took with her a reusable grocery bag. She took bamboo utensils. She even took collapsible Tupperware, a glass straw. I looked online. Amazon carries a lot of this stuff as far as the collapsible Tupperware. We typically carry our Tupperware with us, but haven't been smart enough to use collapsible yet, so I'm going to do that. And then when you get to restaurants, asking, one of the things she messed up was she didn't say, I don't want a straw. Of course, they brought her a straw. Depending on where you're going, you can get, the charcoal little mini filters for the water so you can use in your bottle. So I thought that was, the little charcoal sanitizer sticks. So I thought that was pretty good. But then you start looking around your house, the things that are available, the silicone baggy, reusable bags. Certainly when you go to the grocery store and the produce, to be able to use the nylon bags as opposed to the plastic bags. If you do get a plastic bag or one of those green bags, just reuse them, bring them back. Obviously, your groceries in the carry bags, the reusable grocery bags. I would hope that at some point we'll stop having the plastic bags at grocery stores. I hate when I see those flying around. Now they're having the beeswax wraps, instead of cling wrap. I've always hated cling wrap, so it's a nice change to use beeswax wrap. I saw the coolest thing when I start looking into this was the unpaper towels, and it's basically terry cloth towels that are snapped or sewn together that come on that are roll around your existing paper towel holder, and they're really pretty designed. I think they'd actually be a great gift. So, look into those as opposed to, using paper towels and paper napkins. We went to cloth napkins a long time ago in our house. I just really like the feel of them. They're easily washable, and so, the crazy things that you can do to decrease your plastic waste and at least become more aware of it. So I hope that, kind of gives you a few ideas for what you can do, to try to decrease your plastic consumption this year. The last thing I'll tell you is to be more aware, or to choose to be more aware on how your food is prepared when you go out and you're traveling. I had somebody bring up a nutrition class today. What about chicken broth? Chicken broth comes from a chicken. It's fat and cholesterol. It's nothing good about it. But if you get soups in most restaurants, it's going to have a chicken broth base or a beef broth base, so you have to ask. Just like people, they talked about over the holidays having pastries and cookies and cakes, and it's like you have to. Those are going to have eggs and animal products and butter and cookies, unless you ask, or unless they're vegan and they say they are, and even if they're vegan, chances are they're going to have a lot of oil in them. But you have to ask. Just because you can't see the egg doesn't mean it's not there, and it can really add up over time. So you have to be conscious, and actually you make a decision that, no, I'm not going to eat something unless I know what's in it. And I think that, one of the best ways to look at it is if you were allergic to it. If you were allergic to it, and you really are because it's going to cause you to be sick, then you need to know the ingredients. Do you really want this natamycin preservative in your food? Do you want to change your microbiome? Do you want all these different chemicals in your food products that you're purchasing, thinking that you're buying natural food? So look at the ingredients. Don't look at the front. Look at the back. Look at the ingredients that they list. And if you don't understand what they are, probably don't want any part of them. But you don't be afraid to ask your server what's in something. You can also Google menus. You can, especially of chain restaurants, you can Google what's in their food. They have to list it. So don't be afraid to ask your server. Be conscious of what you're ordering. And I think everybody here should sign up for a marathon. Let's do it. Before I let you go, I need you to go over to the website, drdulaney.com, and get your ticket for our conference, because I'd like to meet you at our 5th Annual Plant-Based Nutrition Conference, March 28th. Karen Hartglass is going to be speaking, as well as Pam Popper, Addie Dulaney Miners, myself. We're going to do a fabulous cooking demonstration. We're going to have a huge question and answer session as well. Lots of great plant-based food, sugar, oil, and salt-free. It's going to be a great day, so get your tickets now. We're also having an immersion week the week before, so if you'd like to spend a week with us and really take your health to a new level with exercise, learning to cook plant-based, learning to menu plan, learning about the science behind plant-based nutrition, having a doctor and a dietitian at your side for a week, then go on over and sign up for that. If you have any questions, you can email us or call us at the office. We'd love to have you as part of the practice. You can go and also find out at drdulaney.com how you can become a member of our practice. We are putting a lot of our cooking demonstrations that we do in the office and our nutrition classes on our members-only website. So you can actually be a part of that and get all of our online content by joining our Level 1 membership wherever you are. And with that Level 1 membership, you'll get a registered dietitian consult once a month with Addie Dulaney Miners, and she'll help you do your plant-based nutrition transition. And again, you'll have content to a multitude of recipes, wellness challenges, exercise circuits, webinars, nutrition lectures, and cooking demonstrations. So, if you have any questions about that, you can email me at jami@drdulaney.com or sign up right online. There's a place to do it at drdulaney.com. So thank you very much for listening, and can't wait to fill you in on how the Houston Half Marathon goes.